So Pornhub is dealing with a security incident. They didn't get hacked. A vendor that they used got hacked. We knew about that breach for about 2 weeks now, and they've had some other high-profile customers, including OpenAI. I wanted to talk about this security incident real quick because it hits to the major point of a video that I made a few days ago about the security landscape basically changing, and that more and more we're seeing these third-party companies that for some reason have all of the keys to the kingdom of the data and a worse security program than like the big companies with the giant budgets. So let's bring up the Pornhub incident real quick. So first of all, I'm kind of disappointed in the amount of detail in a few of these different incident communications. That's it. Like I just scrolled the whole screen. We're going to read some of it, but ta-da. Okay. They, of course, do the thing that you would expect them to do and minimize the impact of this as much as possible. So there's a recent cybersecurity incident involving data from a third-party data analytics service provider, which has impacted some Pornhub premium users. Specifically, the situation affects only select premium users. It's important to note that this was not a breach of Pornhub Premium's systems. Passwords, payment details, financial information remain secure and were not exposed. Normally, you would expect like the overview to be, shorter or less detailed than the whole details, but they're about exactly the same amount of detail. Except now we get the actual name of who got hacked, since it wasn't Pornhub as clearly made by all the bold statements. We recently learned that an unauthorized party gained unauthorized access. Is there ever a chance that an unauthorized party gains authorized access? I mean, all right, I'm just picking nits here. It's just kind of funny wording. To analytics data stored within Mixpanel. So this is the actual victim of the breach, and it's the same breach that impacted OpenAI that we talked about a little while ago. The unauthorized party was able to use this unauthorized access. Hey, did we mention how unauthorized all of this was? To extract a limited set of analytics events for some users. This was, and again, in bold, not a breach of Pornhub premium systems. No password, credentials, payment details, government IDs were exposed. Guys, this is the same. This is like, I'm going to put this in wall of shame on breach announcements. This is not a good one. We immediately launched a comprehensive internal investigation with the support of our cybersecurity experts. We have engaged the relevant authorities and with Mixpanel so that we can provide you with the facts. We are working diligently to determine the nature and scope of the reported incident. Okay, so maybe this is just like the initial communications. I'll give you some grace here. If this is if there's more communications that's going to come out and you're still doing IR, I get it. I've been there. But we could have had a little bit more detail here, okay? Pulling up the Bleeping Computer article about it, they don't tell us a whole lot more, except they do know more detail about the Mixpanel breach. So they talk about on November 8th, so I'm recording this on December 16th, November 8th, an SMS phishing, I refuse to call it smishing, attack enabled threat actors to compromise its systems. For those of you who watch my content, I'll give you one guess who the perpetrator of this attack on a third-party system with a lot of data via SMS phishing is. It's exactly who you think it is. One other important detail here is as Pornhub has not worked with Mixpanel since 2021, so the data is pretty old. Mixpanel says that it wasn't like a full compromise of all of their customers, but OpenAI, and then we'll talk about it, some crypto companies were involved as well. One other really interesting wrench to all this is that after Bleeping Computer published this article about Pornhub, Mixpanel says that, hey, we don't think that data is part of the November breach that we're obviously responding to. We can find no indication that this data was stolen from Mixpanel during November 2025 security incident or otherwise. They're saying the data was last accessed by a legitimate employee account at Pornhub's parent company in 2023. If this data is in the hands of an unauthorized party, did we mention that they're unauthorized? We do not believe that this is a result of the security incident at Mixpanel. So that's super interesting. The timing here is super crazy, right? Mixpanel has security incident, very, very similar amounts of like this kind of user data, the kind of data that Mixpanel does collect and aggregate. And this is like part of their whole product offering, was impacted for OpenAI and some of these crypto companies. Then all of a sudden, a few days later, literally, Pornhub is seeing the same exact kind of thing. And then Mixpanel saying, hey, our forensics say your parent company is the one that maybe had a breach here if that data is truly in the hands of the threat actor Shiny Hunters, which is, of course, the Shiny Lapsus Scattered Spider group that's kind of an amorphous blob right now. This has got their MO written all over it. So we knew about the hack back in November, but then just last week, Shiny Hunters did begin this extortion campaign. Okay, now they're going to use the data that they've stolen from this Mixpanel breach to start extorting their customers. So in the extortion demand sent to Pornhub, Shiny Hunters claims it stole 94 gigs of data containing over 200 million records of PII. Of note, and this is kind of an interesting part here, is records of search, watch, and download activity for the platform's premium users. So while Pornhub in their statement is saying, hey, no passwords or payment information or anything like that was stolen, saying like, it's just like a limited number of, bit of data that we sent over to them. Shiny Hunters is out here saying, well, yeah, but it's your search, watch, and download history. And this is why threat modeling is important, because if we were going to just go off of like compliance, maybe they're compliant and that they weren't sharing the data that needed to be secured in a super secret way, like payment information. But sometimes the actual sensitive data for your company is something else. And in the case of an adult website like Pornhub, just the fact that you have a premium account, depending on your career, might be the sensitive piece of information. So a lot of times in data breaches, we see like, oh, well, just emails were leaked or just names and emails were leaked. No big deal. Your names and emails are basically public now. But if you're on like Ashley Madison, a website dedicated towards people finding people to cheat with on, that breach probably has had a ton of behind the scenes ripple effects in terms of blackmail that none of us had ever even heard about. And I could see this going a very similar way, right? So you have cyber criminals who make a living extorting people, and now they have potentially sensitive information on who knows who. Basically, people who have paid for Pornhub Premium. So if you are in education, politics, if you're a journalist, or if you're a celebrity, or if you're a religious leader, and you just even have an account on this website, that could probably be used to extort you. Never mind if your actual search history is something embarrassing or potentially like really shady if you're working with kids and your search history is targeted towards the kind of populations that you work with. So maybe those people deserve what's coming to them, but we definitely have some second and third order extortion and blackmail event possibilities here. So a small sample data was shared with Bleeping Computer that shows kind of the analytics events that were sent to Mixpanel. And Bleeping is saying like a large amount of the sensitive information is that members would likely not, be very happy if were publicly disclosed. So Pornhub Premium members' email address, activity type, not sure exactly what that means on the platform, location, video URL, video name, I guess of watch history there, keywords associated with the video, and the time the event occurred. It's also super interesting if that might broaden the blackmail opportunities here. If, that time was maybe you were at work. So maybe it doesn't even matter if you're like part of a sensitive population. Maybe you're just like a normal employee who maybe imbibed with some adult content on the job, and all of a sudden they can like send that evidence to your boss or something. I don't know. You can see like you can get creative with this type of sensitive information. So even though payment information and like, people's driver's licenses or whatever weren't stolen, because that's like the compliance stuff, when you're Pornhub, your threat model is different. This is the potentially super embarrassing information that you don't want to lose. Activity types. Oh, I just said I didn't know what activity type is. Activity types seen by Bleeping Computer include whether the Pornhub subscriber watched or downloaded a video or viewed a channel. However, Shiny Hunter said also the events include search histories. I think some people think their Google search history might be super embarrassing, or nowadays people are like my calculator history or my chat GPT history would be super embarrassing. I would assume Pornhub Premium subscribers don't want their search histories published either. So if we hop over to the Mixpanel announcement of their security incident, this was on November 27th. Again, I'm recording this on December 16th. So it's a few days old now at this point. And once again, a lesson into like how not to do a cybersecurity announcement from the CEO. No useful information here. On November 8th, we detected a smishing campaign, promptly executed our incident response process. We took comprehensive steps to contain and eradicate unauthorized access. We have proactively communicated with all impacted customers. If you have not heard from us directly, you were not impacted. We continue to prioritize security, blah, 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 blah. And then just like some stuff that they did as part of like their security improvements. This is like much less useful information to me than the information about what was stolen and the actual hack. I also, by the way, needed to go look at what Mixpanel just did in general. And it seems like it's just a web analytics platform, basically on steroids, right? So you can like give it a bunch of information about how people use your product, and they'll figure out how to like squeeze, more money, retention, sell more widgets out of this, right? Because when I first read about the OpenAI incident that we'll get to in a second for Mixpanel, I was like, why is OpenAI sending all this information to Mixpanel? And kind of being a little bit clueless about what Mixpanel was. I knew, but I didn't know. Then you go to their website and they just straight up are kind of bragging about, well, look at all your user information in the dashboard. This is stuff that you might not want to send with a third party. I would assume you could achieve similar analytics with anonymous, user IDs or UUIDs or something like that you could send this group, but it seems like that is not their bread and butter. Their bread and butter is enriching, hey, these are the people on your platform. This is where they bounced off. This is where they bought. This is where they didn't buy, whatever it is. But I mentioned it a few times that OpenAI had a similar incident. I think I made a short about it, not a YouTube long about it, but they were one of the first kind of big names to come out and say, hey, this Mixpanel thing happened. Here's some data that was stolen. Again, it is an important distinction, right? And, this was not a breach of OpenAI systems. No chat, API request, API usage data, passwords, API keys, payment details, or government IDs were compromised. That is a lot of sensitive information. OpenAI is a juicy target right now. I'm glad that they have a very talented security team. And they say on November 9th, Mixpanel became aware of an attacker that gained unauthorized access. Just pointing it out, that's the different date than on the Mixpanel announcement. When did this one come out? This one came out November 26th. So super interesting. This is a day before the actual, or maybe that's last edit. No, published on November 27th. So OpenAI came out first with this statement on November 26th. And but somehow they beat Mixpanel to their own security announcement. And some of the details are different, which is super frustrating. Okay. If I was running incident response and I was a Mixpanel customer that wasn't OpenAI or Pornhub, and I was like in a Slack channel on a bridge right now with a bunch of lawyers and my executives asking me what's going on, I'm frustrated right now, right? I'm putting my hat on saying, okay, I'm responding to this incident as a Mixpanel customer. Let me like make sure all my details are straight. And I've got conflicting intel reports and like shit for details. I don't know what the private comms of Mixpanel to OpenAI looked like, but if it's anything like the public information coming out of Pornhub and Mixpanel, it would leave a lot to be desired for me. I would be super frustrated. So Mixpanel notified OpenAI that they were investigating, and on November 25th, they shared the affected data set with us. So OpenAI didn't have any visibility into the actual attack or what went on. So I could see OpenAI probably having a hard time being like, it's hard to retroactively catalog what data are we sending to this random SaaS vendor. It's important to kind of keep track of that stuff. It's amorphous. It changes. It's hard to keep up to date. It's a hard question to answer on your own. So it makes sense that they would have to look to Mixpanel to be like, well, what data of ours do you have that is stolen? And so as part of the OpenAI incident, it was like name, email, course location, so city, state, country, operating system, referral website, and some user IDs. So this is like kind of a nothing burger as far as OpenAI data goes. Not super embarrassing to like leak name and email address and city of OpenAI users, right? So this is where the difference therein lies between OpenAI's threat model and Pornhub's threat model. First of all, just like that amount of data being impacted, very different. B, what they were sharing. So OpenAI specifically was not sharing things like queries, like what you're typing into ChatGPT to Mixpanel, which thank goodness they weren't. And I'd say that overall, this incident gets like message from OpenAI gets a higher grade than the other ones. There's a lot more detail here. They're not kind of repeating themselves. They talk about their response. They talk about maybe some of the ripple effects out of this, which are basically identity theft type things. If this could be used in some sort of phishing campaign follow-up, which is, not really like a super higher risk than normal. So when people say that, it's not really a major thing. And then a whole FAQ. Great. Why did OpenAI use Mixpanel? Was this a vulnerability in OpenAI system? This is way, way more helpful. So OpenAI, you get a higher grade. I don't know. I give you a B plus. I could have used like a little bit more technical detail about like the incident or what went on, but I think that this was pretty good. That's just me being picky as like if I was responding to this incident. Then we see over on Twitter, we've got some like crypto companies. I think Coin Tracker is some sort of like tax crypto tracking thing. They let their customers know about this breach before Mixpanel also had spoken out. So on November 21st, so this tweet was on November 26th as well. Okay, so again, this is a day before Mixpanel came out and publicly told it all. A bunch of their customers started telling their customers. And you got people on Twitter like, who else used Mixpanel? And the details of the breach have not been disclosed to us either. Still no statement about your data breach? Nope. So you got like a lot of chatter going on because the customers of Mixpanel let their customers know. This is overall just like not how you handle this. But to put a bow on it, this does tie to another video that I just made super recently about how kind of the threat landscape is changing a bit, right? This isn't like I said, this isn't the AI transformation that people are clamoring about in cybersecurity. This is, hey, how much data are you trusting with your third parties? I've gone into a lot of small businesses over the last few years as kind of an advisory CISO, fractional CISO type work. I go in, I help build security programs for small companies that just haven't ever built one. Some of them don't even really have IT departments yet. You go into some of these companies and I make the joke that some of these companies are actually just 200 SaaS tools in a trench coat and they're now a company. They don't even really have like a product themselves. They're just a group of smart people, maybe offering a service, maybe offering a bit of a light product, but then somehow they have accounts into 200 different SaaS things that are mission critical for operating their business. I've even worked at large enterprise. Forget these small teams. I've worked at large enterprises that have 200 to 500 different Okta tiles when you sign into Okta. So what of those SaaS companies out there, what data do they have of yours? And this is what these shiny hunters or shiny spider or whatever it is, whatever their name is today, that's what they're seeing. They're seeing the writing on the wall here of, hey, these companies with these big security budgets that we would probably have a hard time getting into with our usual playbook. Well, they're sending all their data to these companies that would be much easier for us to break into, like Mixpanel with a smishing campaign, because Mixpanel does not have the same defense in depth and security tooling and security teaming that OpenAI does, or Salesforce does with the Salesforce drift attack that we're seeing. These, the ecosystem around Salesforce is now getting attacked because Salesforce itself would be much harder for these hackers to break into. But we got drift, we got Gainsight, we've got all these other things that, oh, by the way, there's an OAuth token into some of that juicy Salesforce data via this third-party thing. So crystal ball prediction hat on, okay? Everyone likes this. Cybersecurity, everyone loves this, right? No one ever complains about this on LinkedIn or whatever. Cybersecurity predictions of 2026, Matt's crystal ball. If I had a video out of there would be a crystal ball right here. This is going to get worse before it gets better. The number one thing, if you're watching this as like a business owner or a technology leader at a company, and you do not have your story like straight and tight around this kind of attack, smishing, voice phishing, phishing emails. Oh gosh, I called it smishing naturally just there. I say I would never call it smishing. It's infected me. Okay, SMS attacks, SMS phishing attacks, or what's your playbook of when these people call your help desk and pretend to be an employee and ask for a password reset? What's your playbook when they text 200 people a fake Okta login link at 11 o'clock at night and a handful of them fall for it? What's your playbook right now? Like, think about it. Pause. What would happen right now if 4 of your employees fell for an SMS phishing attack that looked like your Okta? Because it was. If you ever used Evil Engine X, it's just proxying your actual login page. They're not cloning your login page. They're just proxying it. So it looks a lot like your login page, right? And someone falls for it, and they type their creds in, and they replay two-factor. Say you do have Duo set up, but it's just a push. And these people are like doing push, or it's a code and they can intercept that code via this Evil Engine X thing as well. It's a whole nother video I can't get into right now if you don't know about Evil Engine X and their phishing techniques. But what's your playbook? If you're watching this and like you're responsible for that 2026 security budget, do you know the answer to that question? A lot of teams that I talk to right now, that's still a squishy soft spot. This is going to get worse before it gets better. The second question, besides what's your playbook for your help desk, is who are you sending your data to? Or who has like random OAuth tokens into your data? If you're Salesforce, watching a video like this, and you're thinking about your ecosystem like Drift and Gainsight that your customers use. How does that change your whole threat landscape and threat model? Does Salesforce have some responsibility here to make sure that these apps that are plugging in and effectively have access to the same amount of data that Salesforce considers the crown jewels for their customers? Is there some responsibility to make sure that Gainsight can't like stub their toe as easily as this, or Drift can't stub their toe as easily as this and impact so many of their customers? Say you're not Salesforce watching this and you're someone else. Same question. What third parties are you sending those crown jewels that you're so diligently protecting to? Because of some contract that says it's okay. Oh, well, we signed an NDA. We signed a contract, signed a master service agreement. Our lawyer said it's okay. So we have this great technological integration with Mixpanel. I didn't heard about Mixpanel until they got hacked. And we got really smart Silicon Valley companies sharing a bunch of data with this company that they, otherwise so diligently protect. Not saying don't do it, right? I understand how the internet works nowadays. I understand how SaaS works nowadays. You can't build all these features in-house. Mixpanel has a cool product, it seems, but you got to be on top of it. You got to figure out your risk radar for these things. What kind of integrations are going on? This is public enemy number 1 going into 2026 for all of you. Okay. If you don't solve this, if you don't have a solve for everything I just talked about in this video, everything I talked about in the Salesforce Drift video a few days ago, if you don't have a solve for this, I literally do not care about any other projects on your plate right now. The number 1 cybercrime organization in the world, the most prolific hackers in the world right now that are not nation state affiliated, this is their playbook. They've laid it out. They've laid it out time and time again for you. We know their playbook and we know they're coming. So what are you doing if not this? Okay. Soapbox off, crystal ball shoved away. I don't think this is too bold of a prediction to consider that this is going to keep going until we figure this out. Thanks again for watching. I like what Network Chuck, you guys watch Network Chuck. I like what he says. He says, let's hack YouTube. You want to hack YouTube together right now? Hack YouTube algorithm right now. I'm still trying to grow this channel. Click all the buttons below. A bunch of you that watch my videos are not subscribed to my channel, so it'd mean a lot if you subscribe and hit the bell and all that kind of stuff. I hope you guys are having a soft landing into the holidays here, and everyone is already following back next year for you, and you have a really chill next couple weeks. All right, follow for more cybersecurity news.